Who is speaking inside you? Is it really you? Or is there another force, much deeper than you, making decisions on your behalf? According to Freud, there are 3 distinct forces living inside every human being, and these 3 forces are in constant conflict with one another. While you're making daily decisions, one part of you impatiently shouts, "Do it now," while another warns, "No, this isn't right." This inner conflict forms the foundation of Freud's most important model of the human psyche: ID, ego, and superego. This isn't just a theory, this is your life. ID, the primitive child. Within the ID is the child living inside you, but this child is not innocent. It is insatiable, impatient, and full of primal desires. If it's hungry, it wants food immediately. If it's angry, it wants to yell, break things, or destroy. Even love, for the ID, is based on possession, consumption, and control. The ID operates on the pleasure principle. It doesn't recognize right or wrong. It knows only one thing: I want. Why do you become obsessive when you love someone deeply? Why does everything lose meaning when someone leaves your life? The answer lies in the suppressed screams of the ID. Superego, the harsh judge. Within, standing in direct opposition to the ID, is a rigid and unquestioning judge, the superego. It is the voice of society, the voice of your parents, teachers, religion, morality. It echoes everything that was taught to you over the years. You can't act like that. That's shameful. That's sinful. You're a bad person. Sometimes this voice pushes you to be a better person, but sometimes it makes you feel like you're never enough. If you can't forgive yourself for a mistake, if you constantly feel the need to please others, that's the invisible chain of the superego. And that chain is invisible, but crushingly heavy. Ego, the warrior in the middle. And in the midst of all this chaos, struggling between the inner voices, stands the ego. The ego is your conscious self, the one that connects you to the real world. It tries to balance the impatient demands of the ID with the strict commands of the superego, but this balance is not easy, because you can't please both sides. One part says, "Go hug them." The other screams, "Don't show weakness." One voice says, "Do it. It will make you happy." The other whispers, "If you do that, everyone will judge you." The ego is torn between these 2 voices, and sometimes you can't make a decision at all. That's why you feel like you're constantly at war with yourself, because this war is real. It happens inside you every single day. The reflections of this war in daily life. Why do you always feel guilty in relationships? Why are your desires and your morality constantly in conflict? Why is what you feel never the same as what you say? Because the ID and superego are speaking, and the ego is simply trying to find balance. This internal trio shapes your identity. But if the ID becomes too powerful, your emotions control you, your anger burns you, and your desires drag you down. If the superego is too dominant, you feel worthless, ashamed, and buried in guilt. And if the ego is weak, your life is no longer yours, but a life dictated by the voices within you. So, what's the solution? Freud tells us this: without seeing the war inside you, you can never reach true freedom. You don't have to fight this war, but you must become aware of it. Observe yourself without judgment. When does the ID shout? When does the superego restrict you? And when is the ego drowning? Once awareness begins, you can start to manage your inner parts. And then, for the first time, you begin to truly be yourself. Before this video ends, now close your eyes and imagine these 3 voices within you. What is your ID saying? What does your superego forbid? And how tired is your ego right now? If you're aware of this war, you're no longer alone. Write in the comments, I see the war within me. Because with that sentence, a transformation begins. And if this video touched you, hit the like button, subscribe, and stay with us on this inner journey. Because this channel offers not just knowledge, but awareness. Let's say you're in a relationship. The other person acts cold toward you, doesn't return your love. How do you feel in that moment? The ID jumps in immediately. Cut them off. Never call again. Punish them, don't let them hurt you. But the superego responds right away. Be mature. Don't lower yourself. You're a good person. Acting that way doesn't suit you. And the ego is stuck in the middle, not knowing what to do, struggling with inner tension. This is the real form of mental conflict. And it doesn't just happen in relationships, it's everywhere, at work. Your boss treated you unfairly. The ID shouts, slam the door, and walk out. You don't deserve this treatment. The superego silences you. You can't lose your job. Be patient. Be the bigger person. And while the ego tries to cope with the stress, it manifests as migraines, back pain, or insomnia. Because everything suppressed will speak through the body. The soul's conflict begins to speak through your body. You posted something on social media and no one liked it. The ID says, I guess I'm not good enough. People don't care about me. The superego says, don't depend on others' approval. That's shallow. The ego starts to question itself. Who am I? Who decides my worth? That's why, every day, every second, these three forces affect each other. And if you're not aware of it, you won't know who's really making the decisions. How do you find balance between these three forces? Know the ID, but don't submit to it. Don't suppress your desires, but don't become a slave to them either. See your inner urges, try to understand them, but learn from them instead of acting them out. Listen to the superego, but don't obey blindly. Let your morals and conscience guide you. But don't let them judge you. Don't be cruel to yourself. Strengthen the ego. The stronger your ego, the more balanced your life becomes. Because then you know your desires and your boundaries. You don't silence your inner voices, you direct them. Meditation, mindfulness, introspection, psychotherapy, these are all ways to strengthen the ego, because the stronger your ego stands, the more peaceful your inner world becomes. What happens when we lose balance? What happens if the ID becomes too strong? Addictions develop. Sudden outbursts of anger, unfulfilling relationships, uncontrollable urges emerge. You lose yourself. What if the superego becomes too dominant? You torment yourself. You constantly feel incomplete. You see yourself as worthless, sinful, guilty, and eventually you meet depression. What if the ego is weak? You can't recognize yourself. You don't know what you want. You let others direct your life, and in the end, you realize you haven't been living your own life. So, what about balance? Balance doesn't always mean calmness. Sometimes balance means accepting the chaos within. When an emotion rises, don't suppress it. Sit with it. When guilt appears, ask where it came from. True freedom is not silencing the voices inside. It's recognizing them and walking alongside them. Freud didn't just give us a theory. He opened the door to the human inner world. And behind that door, we are all fighting the same battle. Your inner map. Now ask yourself, which one influences you most when making a decision? The desire of your ID, the judgment of your superego, or the reason of your ego? If you're torn between these three, you're not alone. We all live through this war, but once awareness begins, this war can turn into peace. Learn to see the fighting parts within you not as enemies but as allies. That's when your soul becomes lighter. The end of the video, but the start of a journey. If this video helped you recognize the voices inside you, don't forget to like and subscribe, because everything we talk about here is for your inner peace. Write in the comments, "I see the war within me and I'm learning to manage it." Because with that sentence, something shifts. Maybe something small but deeply meaningful. Now you know these three forces. ID, the pure form of desire. Superego, your inner critic. And ego, the struggling manager between them. So, is Freud's theory still relevant today? Yes, but now, not just psychology. Fields like mindfulness, personal growth, meditation, and trauma therapy also recognize and transform this inner trio in their own ways. What does modern psychology say? Today, psychotherapists still base their understanding of a person's inner conflicts on the structure Freud built. A client who suddenly bursts into anger, most likely an overactive ID. Someone who constantly blames themselves and never feels good enough. Chances are, the superego is too dominant. Someone who feels indecisive, lost, and directionless. The ego may have lost its function, and this doesn't just apply to clinical situations. It's also true in your own life. Knowing Freud's theory isn't enough to understand yourself. You have to integrate it into your life. Creating mental stillness, transformation through awareness. Mindfulness is one of the most effective ways to strengthen the ego today. When a thought arises, don't follow it immediately, just observe. There's a rising anger inside me. This could be the ID's voice. This guilt might come from the superego pressure left over from my childhood. I'm struggling to make a decision right now because my ego is in conflict. These sentences bring you to the point of inner observation. And once observation begins, control starts to shift to you. Inner conflicts rooted in past wounds. According to Freud, many inner battles are shaped during childhood. If your desires were repressed as a child, your ID may be weakened. If you were raised with constant messages like shameful, sinful, or unacceptable, your superego may have grown too large. And in between these two extremes, your ego's function can break down. Your current reactions might be echoes of the past. Inconsistencies in relationships, indecision, impatience, intolerance, they may all be reflections of your inner conflict. But now you have something you didn't before: consciousness. As Freud said, once the unconscious becomes conscious, fate changes. You're no longer bound to automatic reactions. Once you become aware of your internal dialogue, you begin to collaborate with yourself. The path to inner peace. So, is peace truly possible? Yes, but peace doesn't come through silence. It comes through dialogue. Don't see the ID as your enemy. It's your vitality, your passion, your desire. But don't let it control you. Don't repress the superego. It's your moral compass, your conscience, your principles. But don't let it crush you. Strengthen your ego. It's your inner architect, the center that shapes your life between these three forces. And the one thing you need most while doing this: compassion for yourself. Final words, Freud's warning and your message. Freud once said, "Man does not want to be free, he only wants peace. But peace does not come without knowing the wars within." If there are still conflicts inside you, that's not a bad thing. It's a natural part of being human. But now you're aware of them, you've named them, and everything that is named begins to transform. Call for reflection and engagement. Now think for a moment. How are these three forces speaking in your life? Where's the ID trying to control you? When does the superego silence you? And when does the ego leave you alone? Write in the comments. The war inside me is now visible, and I choose to take charge of it. This channel is here to help you understand and empower your inner journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who may need it, because sometimes just one sentence can end the war within someone's soul.